Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ayman Taleb, and this is the Show About Justice, a weekly talk show discussing the unjust obstacles and challenges facing American Muslims. We're coming to you live today, Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020. Uh, you can catch new episodes of the Show About Justice live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central on MLFA's Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard, and 3 p.m. Pacific. Our guest today on the show is Catherine McDonald. Catherine McDonald is the managing attorney at the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. Catherine obtained her undergraduate degree in international studies from the University of Washington. She graduated from Seattle University School of Law in 1994. Following graduation, Catherine worked in public defense in both Seattle and Tacoma, Washington. Over her 22 years of legal practice in high volume criminal defense, she has moved her practice from state criminal matters to a national security practice in federal courts. In addition to handling a criminal caseload, she has also managed law practices from 2 to 12 attorneys. Along with her criminal practice, she manages the CLCMA office, reviews the initial case intakes at CLCMA, and supervises the research fellows and legal interns at our law center. As the managing attorney here at CLCMA, she is often the first point of legal contact for most clients seeking assistance from our law center. Her organizational ability allows for the smooth running of the law center and ensures that each individual's needs are dealt with appropriately and effectively. Here at the Show About Justice, we believe that the U.S. Constitution applies to American Muslims too. We should not fear exercising our rights. We should not be suspected or treated differently because of our faith, ethnicity, or national origin. We don't want special treatment. We want equal treatment. Nothing more, nothing less. Please like and share this program. Engage with us by commenting and sharing. And don't forget to click on that follow or subscribe button for the latest from MLFA. If you need MLFA's help, reach out to us. If you like what we do, support MLFA. In tonight's episode, I will be discussing with Catherine McDonald an overview of the cases CLCMA took on in 2020 and how CLCMA determines a case intake. Welcome, Kathy. It's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Ayman.
Uh,
Appreciate it.
no, it's a pleasure. I think that what you have to say tonight is going to be very valuable to our supporters of MLFA, and really, it's going to really substantiate a lot of what we do at the Law Center. So, you've been managing attorney of CLCMA since its inception. Can you explain to our viewers and listeners what that means and what that entails?
Yes, most law firms actually have managing attorneys, and they keep track of just a wide range of things. Everything from are all the attorneys presently licensed? Are the checks being sent out and paid for folks that require payment? Are we receiving money we need to? Are we interacting with the clients? Do we have things in place when we get new clients? Do we have client agreements in place? Are we updating contact and address information with clients, with the court, with anyone we interact with? I handle when new employees come in. Part of it's a bit of an HR role. New employees come in, put together orientation, get them everything in place. Their I-9s and W-4s and applications and resumes and passwords and door codes and health insurance and just anything you would envision with having to deal with employees. We also deal with, as I said, courts. Making sure the employees, the attorneys are licensed before courts that they're going to be practicing with. So I'm often involved with wrangling certificates of good standing so that employees or attorneys can apply to various courts where they file their cases, because we have to be registered in a specific court. And oftentimes there's paperwork and fees that need to be paid to get that put in place. Deal with things such as building management. If there's a flood in the break room and water is coming out of a pipe or something, contacting building management to make sure that that's put in place. Dealing with our grant funder, Muslim Legal Fund of America, to make sure that y'all understand what we do and how you can best support us. I'm involved in putting together outreach to the community. Various times we have employees or attorneys speak at law schools, speak at community centers, speak at banquets. So I coordinate, making sure they know where to go, what's going to be expected of them, what's the length of time they're going to be speaking, how are they going to get there, who's going to pick them up, where they're going to be staying. Is the information correct in brochures that are being distributed? It's just anything that sort of goes along with managing a law firm, and that includes making sure the attorneys and paralegals have appropriate legal research materials, that they have updated programs, that their computers are working. I never envisioned myself being like the computer person for the office. I would have been the last person that I would have ever expected that I would be the one, fixing computer program problems at the first level before I'm calling in our IT person. So helping get computers set up, and that's sort of the management part of it. I also do attorney parts as well. So as you had mentioned, my background is in criminal defense. I was a criminal defense attorney for, oh goodness, well, still am, but since 1995. And did everything from misdemeanors to felonies to child dependency. So, I'm still doing a lot of that in federal court. So support of the attorneys that are, in trial, oftentimes, or in hearings, oftentimes something will come up and they will, hey, I need a copy of that order that was, issued on XYZ case. And I'm the one, scrambling to try and find it, to look for it and get it sent over to an attorney who might be, in a hearing in St. Louis or something that day. So a little bit of everything, and a lot of things. So it's never a dull moment. Every day is interesting. I like who I work with, and I like what I do. So it's enjoyable for me. I enjoy it. I find it a challenge, and every day is something new. You can't make some of this stuff up. So.
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like a lot of what you do basically is like office managerial stuff, but of course there's the legal component to it.
Right.
We mentioned in your bio that you're the first person, kind of like you're like the traffic cop at the intersection of incoming traffic, right?
That's such a good description, Ayman, of
Yeah,
what
thanks.
happens.
Yeah, it's like all these applications are coming in, and you're the first person that has eyes on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about 2020, right? Has
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 taken a toll on the number of applications CLCMA usually receives?
Well, it has, and a lot of that has to do with how MLFA gets the word out about CLCMA and how we get the word out
Mm.
about what we do, and information that's provided to the community. One of the main venues, or main, I guess, avenues for folks to find out what we do at CLCMA and the type of cases we handle, because we're a very niche law firm in terms of the type of cases we do take, is from MLFA functions and MLFA fundraising efforts at the masjids. And so what generally has happened is, in the past, MLFA will go out to the masjids. They'll be out there, after Juma, or, at community events, that sort of thing. And in the course of their fundraising and telling folks, what resources are available to them, community members will hear, oh, this is something that, this is interesting. This is the first time I've heard of this, or I forgot about this. And, oh yeah, they were at the mosque, 2 years ago, and now they're back. And oftentimes it will jog things in community members' minds. It's like, wow, I have a legal issue. That kind of sounds like something that I could maybe use some help with. And so what we will tend to find is, for example, we'll have, an MLFA fundraiser will be out at, let's say, a mosque in Arizona. So in Phoenix, for example. And about 3 or 4 days later, all of a sudden, we start getting little ping, 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 little legal requests from folks, surprisingly enough, in Arizona, And so So I'm often the one that can, without being told, I can often say, "Oh, MLFA was at in Phoenix last week," because suddenly there's an uptick in legal requests from that certain area. So this
Right.
has been going on for the course of since CLCMA's inception in 2014.
Hmm.
We would probably average probably about one intake a day. I would, especially like in 2017, 18, 19.
Mm.
Um, we probably averaged about 300, anywhere between 315 to 350 requests for case assistance a year. So that
Mm.
comes, if you take weekends out of it, you're looking at, I don't know, what, five, six, seven requests coming in any given week. And they have been, it's a steady flow throughout the year. It's not like you get a ton of requests all of a sudden and then it's quiet, but it's consistently burbling along throughout the whole year. And it tends, quite frankly, to correspond a lot with fundraising efforts that are being done either by email or by direct mail or by personal appearances in the mosques.
Mhm.
What we have seen now with COVID, with everything being locked down, as you're well aware, is theaters and bowling alleys and churches and mosques and hairdressers and every place. They are cutting back, especially initially and now, in in-person attendance. And that has also impacted MLFA with their fundraising. So they are no longer able to go to the mosques. I mean, they theoretically could go to the mosque, but my understanding is there's not people there, and if they are, it's a smaller number. And traveling is a lot more difficult. It's a lot more dangerous. And so we are finding that we're getting a lot fewer requests for legal assistance due to the COVID. I think the numbers that I had was through the middle of November, we had about 165 case intakes. And that's
165 case intakes for this year
for
up
this
until
year,
last month.
up until the middle of November.
That's basically every other day you're getting something on average.
Yes, but we were getting at least double that
Hmm.
in
Before,
previous years.
right?
Yes, yes.
And
So
had it not, so it's safe to say, had it not been for COVID, definitely there would have been an influx of cases
absolutely,
coming in.
I would have expected probably about an additional 200
Mhm.
cases coming in, but for
Right.
COVID.
So
So
even if it wasn't for, so we're seeing that even without COVID, sorry, even without MLFA, people like myself or the rest of the team going to visit the communities, we're
mhm,
still seeing that there's a huge need for this service in the community, and
absolutely,
people are hearing
absolutely.
about it through other means. We're
Mhm.
just trying to kind of need to tap into those
Yeah,
um, channels to get the word out so people can wake up, turn on the light bulb and say, "Oh, I need to contact TLCMA for this need I have."
exactly, exactly. And there is a lot that we can do. As I mentioned a little earlier, we don't take every case that comes our way. So just because you're Muslim or your problem or your legal issue impacts an issue that is important to the Muslim community, um, there's a certain narrow range of the type of cases we take. However, we do want to give each intake that comes our way, whether we can take it or not, information on how they can go about addressing their problems. We'd like to say, we don't want to say no, we want to say how. So, for example, one of the type of cases we don't take are what are called state cases. So, cases that are filed in cities, municipal courts, superior courts, county courts in a specific city or state. The issue with those type of cases is that, as I mentioned, the licensing criteria for doing legal work requires the attorneys to be licensed in that specific state. In state courts. And that means you have to generally have taken a bar exam in that state. So while I am licensed in 3 states, and Charlie Swift, who's the director, I believe he's licensed now in 5 states, we don't cover all 50 states. So it hardly seems fair that if we, get a state case from, somebody in the Muslim community in Iowa, for example, It's we don't want to be able to say we don't want to say no, I can't take your case because I'm not licensed in Iowa, where somebody in Texas comes to us and I can say, sure, I can take your state case because I'm licensed in Texas. So the board of directors at CLCMA has determined that to have a level playing field for everybody, just because of the size where I live, we're just at 10 or 12 attorneys. We can't be everywhere all at once. So the state cases, the amount of resources that would be needed to try and cover all 50 states, it's just prohibitive with the staff we have and the budget we have. One day we'd like, would like to do that. We would like to be everywhere. That will require, more support from, members of the community, to be able to fund that sort of thing. So right now we've decided to concentrate on federal courts, because if you are licensed in one state, you can be admitted to practice in any federal court, generally in the US. So, and that encompasses a whole larger thing. You don't have to piecemeal it with a bunch of smaller states or, individual states.
Okay. Very cool. That's very interesting. I didn't know some of that. So we mentioned earlier that the case intakes for this year in
Mhm.
2020 amount to over 160.
Yes.
And do you have the numbers as to how they divide per
Yes.
department?
Yes, we seem to get the largest number of intakes in our immigration department.
Hmm.
And we do not do, I guess I'm not an immigration attorney, but I believe the phrase is transactional immigration. For example, I want to bring my fiance over from Egypt. We want to get married and I'm having problems getting a visa. So incoming sort of things. I'm a doctor and I just got a job offer at NYU hospital, and I'm having problems getting my work visa approved, that sort of thing. Or I'm trying to bring my parents over, and it's not, things are falling through. We don't do the transactional cases, people coming in for work or for asylum is something we don't do either. There are attorneys and organizations that are out there that can help you. What we do is sort of a bit further along the system. Somebody is applying for permanent residency or applying for citizenship, and their application's been in for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and they're constantly being told to come in for another interview with USCIS. The FBI is wanting to interview them for some reason. Their immigration appointment constantly is getting delayed.
Hmm.
There are all sorts of sort of national security issues that seem to be, coming up with, well, didn't you, donate money to this organization back, 8 years ago? Weren't you in a carpool with somebody, on the way to some, meeting or something along that line?
Hmm.
So when the federal government gets involved in immigration issues, delaying folks from becoming permanent residents, or citizens, or if they are citizens and the federal government's trying to strip them of their citizenship for one reason or another, we would essentially, are able to file suit, take those cases up to federal court. So when somebody says a phrase of, do you want to make a federal case of it? Well, that's us. We want to make a federal case of it. We don't practice so heavily in immigration court. But primarily it's mandamus petitions and cases in federal court. Immigration probably is about 35% of the case intakes that come in.
Hmm.
Civil department is our next highest, and
Hmm.
those are cases that have to do with civil matters. The one area we don't tend to do too frequently is employment law. There are attorneys out there who do take employment cases on contingency fee basis, which
Hmm.
means that if you are wronged by your employer and you believe that you're somehow due money or redress from your employer,
Hmm.
an attorney will take that case based on a percentage of any money that you might get out of that lawsuit. So there are folks in the community, legal community, willing to take those cases at no charge.
Hmm.
So we generally don't handle those cases unless it's touches the federal government. So, for example, if you have a job and suddenly you convert to Islam and your security clearance is pulled from your federal government job, that is the type of case we would take, because it's the federal government as an actor. We don't take cases where they're private individuals as actors. So if it's a private company, not, for example, if it's a private company that says, I'm not going to promote you because you wear a hijab, that there are state laws and state regulations that cover that.
Mm-hmm.
We would take it on if it was a federal government that said, we can't have you working for the, Department of the Interior because because of your religious practices. That would be a type of case we would take because it's a government employer as opposed to a private employer. The civil cases also encompass folks what we call TWIC cards, or folks who have special passes, security screenings to be able to get sort of behind the fence, so to speak, at airports or ports of entry, that sort of stuff. And oftentimes you have folks who are baggage handlers or pilots or transportation workers bringing cargo onto, Port of Los Angeles shipments, that sort of thing. And they're required to have something called a TWIC card. It's a transportation worker identity card. And oftentimes the federal government uses the TWIC card and as a lever to try and get information out of community members. It's like, well, we're going to pull your TWIC card unless you tell us what happened at this mosque on this date, or, tell us about this person, that sort of stuff. Or sometimes they just don't give reasons and they just pull the security card. And so that, again, federal government taking action, impinging on somebody's right to work. And a government benefit is being taken away. Another one folks hear about all the time is the no-fly list or the terror watch list. You probably know folks who have had difficult times going through security. And it can be very difficult, especially if you are a businessman and you travel frequently and you travel 2-3 times a week. And every single time you go to the airport, you're stopped and you have to spend an extra 2 hours going through security screenings and, downloading phones and that sort of thing. So we're involved in, that sort of thing, the ability to travel. We have folks who are overseas, they're US citizens and want to come back and they have to take care of, a warrant that might be outstanding. They need assistance in being able to negotiate, being able to come back to the US. They're permanent residents or US citizens. As our name implies, it's the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. So folks that are entitled to be in America are the folks that we help. Criminal cases, probably it's a little less than 30% compared, so it's a tad under civil and immigration. But the criminal cases, two main sort of cases that we take. We take national security cases, and generally it's where individuals are tangentially related to terrorism. For example, somebody commits an act of terror and the FBI or the Department of Justice is going after their brother, or they'll, try and get information out of their mother to find out, what happened on the day of the crime, that sort of thing. And they start, bringing charges against them to try and, I don't know if it's whether they're trying to send a message to the Muslim community, you need to tell what's going on, or we're going to come down on you with this government hammer, or whether they're just trying to, who knows? But it's we don't take cases or individuals who, commit acts of terrorism, but people who are tangentially related and caught up in it due to essentially no fault of their own. So,
like a family member just happen to be related, or you happen to be associated, but you yourself have no tie to no tie to a terrorist or an act of terrorism, but because you're related to them or maybe
Mm-hmm.
you rub shoulders with them at one point,
Mm-hmm.
that they're
Exactly.
gonna. And if you refuse to cooperate, or cooperate is a tight word, a loaded word, but if
Mm-hmm.
you refuse to basically say anything
Mm-hmm.
or give information, then they start
Suddenly,
to
on
they
the
utilize
terrorist
these.
watch list, and you're having a hard time at airports, and
Mhm,
job security things are pulled because you're not answering the questions to the sufficiency of the FBI or Department of Justice. That's where we come in.
mhm,
To try and protect those individuals in the community from these type of abuses. So, and we
mhm,
don't you don't necessarily need to be Muslim to have our services. For example, we had one fellow call and say, the FBI has been wanting to talk to me. I had a roommate who was Muslim that they're asking all these questions about, and I'm not Muslim. I don't know anything that's going on here, and I'm just nervous the FBI is here. Well, that request for assistance is something that's important to the Muslim community, because it could be the next person the FBI tries to contact could be Muslim for the same sort of thing. It might be the Muslim roommate.
mhm,
So it's, all the stuff we do, all the cases we take, one of the overriding things that we do is the cases have to be of importance to the Muslim community.
mhm.
It can't just be something that I find interesting, for example. Um, Now, one of the so those are the three, and I can circle back to that here in just a moment. But those are the three main areas that we take cases. One of the other, actually, two other areas in criminal that we would categorize under criminal is requests for FBI interviews. Oftentimes, the FBI will contact someone and say, we want to talk to you. Can we meet at your office? Can we meet at a Starbucks? So we have a few questions to ask you. And a lot of times, folks get very intimidated when the FBI shows up to their door and says, "Can I talk
Mhm,
to you?"
mhm.
And it's tempting to think that, oh, I'll just answer some questions and they'll go away because I have nothing to hide. I have not done anything wrong. Uh,
Right.
and that,
It's kind of like they show up. It's like I have nothing. Like you said, I have nothing to hide. So it's like, let's meet up, and I'll start singing the Star Spangled Banner just to show you how patriotic I am.
yeah,
If,
but,
but
but exactly. But you don't know. I mean, they're traps for the unwary. You
right
don't
there you go.
know. Are you a target of the investigation? Are you a
Hmm.
suspect? Are you just a witness interview? I mean, what is going on? So when you contact us, we can, on your behalf, contact the FBI and find out, why are you wanting to interview this person. One of
Hmm.
the things folks don't realize is that the FBI agents and government agents, they're allowed to lie to individuals they're talking to. They do not have to tell the truth
Hmm.
unless there's an attorney present in the room with them. Because in order for us to give good advice to you about whether or not to talk to the FBI or not to talk to the FBI or how to answer a question, we have to know, we have to be given correct information. So they are suddenly put on alert, they're put on notice that there's an attorney sitting next to this person. You can't pull their chain and lie to them. You have to be completely upfront. And the number of cases, I tell you, where the FBI wants to talk to somebody, and then we call the FBI agent and say, Mr. So and so wants to have an attorney present. And then so
Hmm.
we'll get back to you to get that scheduled. And then we never hear back from the FBI agent. It's like,
So
oops.
the moment you call them, the moment an
Mhm.
attorney calls them on behalf of somebody from the community, the FBI just goes away.
Yeah, it's too much of a pain for them to have to deal. They don't want to
Um,
share the information. They don't want to
right.
disclose the information. They don't want to talk about what they're mandated to do or not do with the latest,
Hmm.
memo from the Department of Justice is about why they're, interviewing members of the community. They just go away. So
Right,
that's
and they
always
just and
gratifying.
that's usually the case. It's not always. I mean, but
Yeah.
even if like let's say the FBI comes knocking on my door, I would feel a lot better having my attorney present
Mhm.
to be able to give me good counsel as
Mhm.
to whether this question needs to be answered or this question
Right.
I don't have to answer.
Right. And one of the things we often tell, and when we're doing a Know Your Rights sort of seminar, is
Hmm.
we often say, if the FBI showed up to Bill Gates's door, the founder of
Hmm.
Microsoft, the second richest man in the, America after I think Jeff Bezos, right?
Hmm.
If they showed up to his door, would Bill Gates talked to the FBI. And most of the time people say, no, he wouldn't talk to them. And it's like, no, he probably would. But the question is, how many attorneys would he have at his side before he
Right.
started talking to them? And so why, why should Bill Gates is a, brilliant man, went to Harvard University, founded Microsoft and stuff. And he's not going to be he's not going to show up by himself. And you should not show up by yourself, to talk to an
Mhm.
FBI agent. You even if you think I've done nothing wrong, my family's done nothing wrong. It's you don't know what they're looking for. You don't know who they're asking about. More often than not, we have clients who get in trouble for making false statements to the FBI, and they didn't even know they were making a false statement. And that's just so it's we're like a canoe in a stream, right? Going down river. And at some point, our client's going to get in the canoe with us. Okay. If the client's already fallen over the rapids and the waterfall, and we're not getting them till towards the end, they've already spoken to the FBI. They've already provided all this information. There's not a lot we can do if you've already talked and you've already confessed or spoken or made false statements or statements that they're going to get you in trouble. We're trying to do cleanup, but it's a whole heck of a lot easier for us if you get in the canoe at the top of the river, and we can try and avoid those rapids early on. It's just better for it, and we don't charge. It's not. It's our CLCMA is funded by members of the Muslim community. Your donations to MLFA make it possible for folks to get legal help and get legal assistance, to have their questions answered, to have representation in scary times. I'm an attorney. I'm used to going to court. I like going to court, except when it's me. I got pulled over for a speeding ticket and I went to court, and I was nervous all day long because it was my speeding ticket. I was in court. I was in front of the judge. I got tongue tied. It's so much easier, if you have somebody speak on your behalf. People make fun of lawyers, and I don't need a lawyer, but you do. You don't want a lawyer, but we're here to help, and there's a lot we can do. Real quick, in criminal too, in the criminal thing, we also deal with subpoenas. So organizations or individuals might get subpoenas to come and speak to a grand jury, or provide documents to Department of Justice or FBI. And we often can help out with that. We can review the documents in advance to make sure that whatever is being turned over to the Department of Justice doesn't violate attorney-client privileges, or meets the compartmentalization of what the subpoena asks for. We can negotiate proffers and meetings with the FBI, short of having to do grand jury testimony, which is also very scary. So all that sort of comes into the criminal end of things. So actual criminal cases, subpoenas, and FBI fall into and I do a lot of the criminal stuff, which is why I know more about that perhaps than I do civil and immigration, because I am a criminal defense attorney. So while I do the managing attorney stuff at CLCMA about 50% of the time, I think probably 25 to 30% of the work I do is actual work on criminal cases. Another 20% is working on helping with immigration and civil cases as well.
That's very interesting, Kathy. To our audience, if you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Catherine McDonald, managing attorney of the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. We're discussing an overview of the cases CLCMA took on in 2020 and how CLCMA determines a case intake. Please like and share this program. Engage with us by commenting and sharing this program. And don't forget to click on that follow or subscribe button for the latest from MLFA. If you need our help, call us. And if you like what we do, support MLFA. In fact, you got some love, Catherine. Narissa Khan is watching, and she's saying, "Love her." So there's love shout out to you, Catherine.
Yay. Thank you,
Uh,
Narita.
Yeah. If you have, also to our audience, if you have other comments if you have comments that you would like to share with us on the program, there's a chance that may come on the screen. So participate and engage. And if there's a question that may be beneficial to the audience, we may entertain that question as well. Kathy, so let's get back into it.
Mhm.
MLFA's work is in funding work that makes justice possible. You mentioned earlier that CLCMA has a specific niche. So, what is CLCMA's scope of work? What kind of cases are CLCMA likely to take?
Well, one of the things that the cases that we take have in common is there is a what we call a national security element to the cases, be they immigration or civil or criminal. There is some connection or touching of the case and the individual with the Department of Justice or the FBI. So that is probably one of the main thread that goes through the type of cases that we actually handle. So, for example, we have gotten intakes on divorces or domestic violence, or my son got pulled over for a DUI, or they're trying to close down my shop because, some reason along that line. There's really nothing. First off, those are state cases. But second of all, there's really nothing having to do with national security. There's no
Mm,
government action, no constitutional issue. So that's the other, when I say national security, it's sort of a constitutional issue that is important to the Muslim community. And I am not Muslim. So, for my knowledge of what would necessarily be important to your community, we have, I don't say outsourced, that's not really the term, but ultimately our cases, whether or not we take a case, is determined by our board of directors at CLCMA, which are made up of four Muslim attorneys in four different practice areas. We have one attorney who has a background in working actually for the Department of Justice, so this criminal law background that she has. Another one has a business law background. She worked for a large corporation. Another board member has done estate planning, family law, Sharia compliant wills and trusts, that sort of thing.
hmm.
And the fourth board member has a background in immigration law. So we're still in the process of we want to get one board member that has a background in academia. So like somebody who teaches at a university or works for a think tank or government connections, that sort of thing. So so we currently have four board members. They're all attorneys. They have to be attorneys. And what happens is I get the case intake, I review it, determine is an immigration case, criminal, civil, that sort of thing. Does it look like there's a constitutional issue that does it sort of generally meet the type of case we might take? Is it a federal case? Is it a state case? Is it an employment law case? Is it something that we would normally take? And if it is, we generally do some research, talk to the client. The client's represented by another attorney in another area. For example, it comes to us and they have a prior immigration attorney and they want to go a different direction, or prior criminal defense attorney. We may talk to their attorneys to find out issues about their case, review documents, discovery, go on the court PACER system to take a look at any previous filings that might have been done, or the individuals will send us subpoenas or documents or explanations or bank statements or whatever the issue might be. And we'll take a look at that and make a determination, yet again, is this something that likely should have a board review? Is it the type of case that, we may or may not take? It's our mandate that the board of directors does take a look at these cases and ultimately make a decision. Anytime we have to file a notice of appearance in a case, we need to get approval from the CLCMA board of directors.
Hmm.
And they make that determination. Is it important to the Muslim community? Do we have the space available presently to take it? That's sort of another issue because we're very small. We, are always hoping to grow and add attorneys and be able to, take on more cases. But again, it's it's that costs money. So we do what we can within the budget we have. But some cases we may be willing to take if there's space available. So if things are a little quiet, if there's some downtime, it's like, what, that employment law case, we might just be able to fit that in. We have some space. We have an extra intern working this summer. We can have them work on it, with attorney supervision, that sort of thing. So, and also looking at what the budget might be like for the case. Criminal cases, actual federal criminal cases that require, jury trials, that sort of thing. For example, I'm thinking of the Noor Salman case that took place in Florida. It was a 3.5-week long federal trial in the Middle District of Florida. And that, we had 4 attorneys essentially on the case. So we had, 4 attorneys, 3 nights, or 3.5 weeks of hotel rooms, transportation there, meals and food. We had experts. Now, generally, because we are a 501c3, nonprofit zakat eligible organization, we are able to have the court agree to pay for some expert services, translation services, mental health experts, experts in various fields of Islamic studies or computer or cell phone forensics, all sorts of things along that line. So generally we can get the courts to pay for some of that, but a lot of the money comes out of our budget, and we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We want to make sure that if we're going to take a case, that we've got the time, we've got the money, we've got the knowledge and ability to do it. We don't want to take on a case just because it looks interesting and exciting. We want to be able to say, no, we have the knowledge, capability, and capacity to do this. We have the money to be able to follow this case and see this case through. We have the ability, time, money, capacity, that sort of thing. So that's other stuff we look at as well, in addition to whether or not it's, a constitutional issue and is it important to the Muslim community? Do we have space, time, money, and an ability to do it? That's a mouthful.
Very,
So there you
yeah,
go.
no, it's great. It was very thorough, and you explained the process and the vetting and the filtering very well and thoroughly. I don't think I have any review questions.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
some of the cases we do take, or some of the issues we do take, we have been approved that if it's going to take less than 40 hours of attorney time, or if it's going to be less than $5,000, we don't necessarily have to run it by the board of directors if there's no notice of appearance in the court. So if somebody comes and says the FBI is, snooping around and wants to talk to me, and we have to fly to Massachusetts for an FBI interview or something like that, the amount of time it would take is not so great that we want to, constantly ping our board of directors, every other day with, can we take this case? Can we do it? They're kind of like, you know what, if it looks like it's important to the Muslim community, looks like you can handle it, looks like you've got space for it, and it's under this budget and this time frame, just go ahead and do it. But the sort of larger cases, things that would impact funding and staffing, that sort of thing, as well as whether or not we actually need to file a notice of appearance in court where we say that Clcma is on a case. We do need board approval for that, which is good. I applaud that, because I don't want to be making a determination about whether or not a case is important to your community. It's not my community, it's your community. So I need your community, to fund this, to tell me what's important, to let me know what direction you want to go, and to make sure that we're good stewards of the money that is being donated, to make sure it's going the right place and make sure that it's being spent in a conscientious, appropriate, and a thoughtful way to maximize the money that people are, kind enough to, to send our way to help this community.
Yeah. So my next question, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Kathy. But my next question is, can you give us examples of types of cases, like requests that you get that are not in CMA's scope of work? You mentioned you don't do state cases. You
Correct.
don't do, you mentioned, my shop is being closed down, or I'm going through a divorce, or we don't do any of that. But what other types of cases are not in CLCMA's scope of work that people might think that it is,
Mhm.
but it's not in our wheelhouse?
Well, and I want to actually answer that sort of in the opposite direction, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Some of the
sure.
cases that come in, we might initially think it's not in our wheelhouse. For example, we get somebody coming, a doctor will say, I am being charged with Medicaid fraud.
Mm,
I've been indicted and there are these criminal charges. And I'll initially think, Medicaid fraud, what does that have to do with constitutional issues?
mhm,
You're either committing Medicaid fraud or you're not committing Medicaid fraud. It's not, it's doctors who are doing billing that is not necessarily truthful to that sort of thing. And what will happen is we'll get deeper into it and find out that the reason why the government is targeting them is because previously they tried to get them on some other, oh, you sent money to these, Syrian fighters, that sort of thing. And they're like, no, I didn't do this. And they're not able to sort of pin some sort of a criminal charge on them for sending money overseas, because it went to a
mhm,
legitimate charity, for example. And so
mhm,
they're like, okay, now what? Hey, they're doctors. Let's start going over their records, or hey, tax evasion. I wonder if they had problems with their taxes. Let's try and dig down in that. So the federal government, it seems like the FBI right now is sort of running out of, terrorists, Muslim terrorists to run down. So they're looking for just, regular Joe, Muslims who are working in the country
mhm.
and live here. And suddenly they're, trying to find what they call, what's the ancillary prosecution, I think is the term. Somebody who, marriage fraud or tax
Mhm.
issues or
It's
mortgage question. They're
uh,
just trying to go after you just to go after you.
it sounds like basically they're really reaching, like they're really
Yeah.
scraping the bottom of the barrel kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Yep. Yep. They really are. Because you have to remember that the Department of Justice is something like a $5 billion budget
Oh,
to
is that all? Is that all? I'll write you a check to.
route out terrorists. And so and if you're not familiar with how government funding works,
Mhm,
you don't spend the money that's allocated by the government, you don't get that money in the budget the following year.
mhm.
So they're at the end of the year, they're frantically, buying chairs, conference tables, computers, and doing everything they can to try and spend the money so they get the same money next year. And same thing
Oh.
too. There's just not as there's not these Muslim terrorist cells in the U.S. They're not routing out terrorism like they had told Congress that they needed the money to do. And so now they're running. We're going to have to start cutting some of these FBI people. We're going to have to start cutting some of these Department of Justice people. So they're looking for something anywhere to try and to maintain their budget. Our budget is just minuscule compared to what theirs are. So we feel like we're it's a Sisyphean task trying to go against the power of the Department of Justice because they're out of control. So oftentimes, cases that don't look like they might be the type of cases we take turn out to be the type of cases we take. And as I said, even if it's not the type of case to take, as I said, we don't want to say no, we want to say how. So if you come to me with a case and say, they're trying to take my kids, they're trying to give custody to the mom because they're concerned I'm Muslim and she's not, and I think I'm getting a bad deal on this. We will try and help you locate resources, locate attorneys, provide you suggestions on how you can move forward with that case. We can't certainly come in and do that case. That's not what we do, but we can at least send you to the right direction. You're getting abused by your husband and you want to get out and you have no idea how to do this. We can try and give you the names and resources of domestic violence shelters in your town, that sort of thing,
Mhm,
how to do that.
mhm.
You have problems with your homeowners association, and they don't like the fact that you're Muslim and you're living in their neighborhood. How do you combat that? How do you deal with that? And
Mhm,
again, we try and we can't help you with that, but we can. We don't say no. We say how. This is how you can go about trying to raise awareness, bring suit, do that sort of thing. And this is how you can go about getting an attorney to do that.
Okay. I mean, wow. I mean, it's like in a country that has rule of law, many people find themselves in need of legal help. Every case, there's a story behind it. A mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a person made to feel vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and they need help.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Catherine McDonald, managing attorney of the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. We're discussing an overview of the cases CLCMA took on in 2020 and how CLCMA determines a case intake. Please like and share this program. Engage with us by commenting and sharing this program. And don't forget to click on that follow or subscribe button for the latest from MLFA. If you need MLFA's help, reach out to us. And if you like what we do, support MLFA. We have another comment from one of our viewers, a beneficiary of MLFA, Sheikh Dr. Ibrahim Dramali.
Oh,
We funded his legal work before CLCMA
mhm.
was founded, and
I
he
recognize the name. Yes.
yeah, he is saying in Arabic. Let me see if I can read it here. Uh, Ra- oh, Jazakallahu khairan. He's basically saying, thank you so much. May God reward you
Mhm.
all very much for what you're doing. That's basically what
Oh,
he's
thank
saying.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy, the hour's we're getting ready to wrap up
Really?
here.
Wow, that's
And Yeah, it flies really quick, doesn't it? um, so can you we talked a little bit at the beginning of the program how COVID
fun.
has affected the way that CLCMA conducts its business,
Mhm.
and that because MLFA is not out in the field,
Mhm.
so that has affected the case intake test. People, how usually people do
Mhm.
hear about your
Mhm.
services. So I'm I'm just gonna pass by that. One question I do want to ask is, um, were there cases that you reviewed that CLCMA had to turn down simply because the firm didn't have the bandwidth to take it on? That had CLCMA had more attorneys, you would have been able to take on those cases.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's
Um,
interesting.
I don't have, specific examples, but I do, and I
Mm,
do know, for example, the immigration department, they have cases lined up, ready to go and ready to file
mm,
when they have enough staff to be able to do it. Because it's not just putting together the case and filing it, but you constantly are getting deadlines from the court in terms of response briefs and reply briefs and arbitration and all sorts of things. So we want to be able to uh, give our all to the cases we have. We don't want to
mhm,
do a bunch of cases and give a short shrift to them. We want to be able to do the cases thoroughly and correctly. We don't want to do a half job on these things. And I know we just got through hiring two new attorneys. One is an immigration staff attorney, and one is a appellate attorney. So we
mm,
have been able to expand a bit of what we can do because we were, quite frankly, on just sort of taking minimal cases for a while because we were just unsure of what the budget was going to look like. It's up to this is your law firm. This is the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. This is your law firm. No minority has ever gotten the full panoply of rights without asking for them, requesting it, suing, and getting it. Be they Japanese Americans, African Americans, LGBTQ Americans, um, Irish Americans. My relatives, Irish need not apply. And so it's we're here to make sure that you have all of the rights that are due to you as American citizens and
mm,
resident aliens, and just as people living here in the United States. You are here. You're welcome. You are heard, and we want to make sure that this law firm, is able to uh, make changes in government policies so that going forward it's easier for the next person who's brave enough to come forward and say this is wrong. I need to get this corrected by the government, and I'm not going to sit by and stand by and let this happen to me and happen to my community. And so we're here to try and hear your voices, put those voices into action, and make changes through the court of law. That's what we do. We effectuate change in the courts. It takes a while. It's a process. It's not speedy. It's not public policy. It's not legislation. It's not changing rules and regulations
Mhm.
right in front of you. It's changing law over the long haul.
Yeah. Last question, Kathy.
Sure.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Again, please go on to the CLCMA website, the MLFA website, and take a look at what we do, because we do a lot of great work for members of the community and great work for just Americans in general.
Mhm.
And you should know what we do, spread the word, and we're here for you. Please let folks know that you can fill out the request for assistance, and we'll get back to you and let if we can help, and if not, what we would recommend you doing. We're your law firm, so, and we can't do it without you. We can't do it without the intakes, and we can't do it without the donations. We're a nonprofit, and it's by definition, we rely on community members to fund us. So without you, without your donations, zakat eligible, by the way, without your donations, we're going to be going back into private practice, and you'll be paying for lawyers. So you don't want that to happen.
No, no, you don't.
So,
And the end of the year, since because you mentioned that it's Zakat eligible, the end of the year is coming up. So
mm,
it's if you're of the type that does your Zakat at the end of the calendar
mhm.
year, uh, this is the time to do it. To check
Wait for
out what
it's
was it
don't
to
wait
check
till
out.
Ramadan. We need you year round. So
Exactly, exactly. So, to our viewers and listeners, the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America, which is funded by a grant fund by the Muslim Legal Fund of America, has about 100 open cases right now. We receive applications every day from people who are going through unjust challenges and obstacles. The time to act against oppression and persecution is now. Brothers and sisters, you can help and support victims of injustice. You can click on the link below and make a donation, or you can go to our website and make a donation there by visiting www.mlfa.org/give. And you can click on, you can also volunteer. You can donate your time by going to volunteer.mlfa.org, support through volunteering. Kathy, I'd like to thank you again for being our guest today. Thank you so much for taking the time. I
thank
know
you.
you're very busy, and I know you got to rush over to another meeting right now. Um, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Keep fighting the good fight. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Join us next time here on MLFA's Facebook page or YouTube channel next week, Tuesday, December 29 at 5 p.m. Central. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to share this video and give your feedback. This is the show about justice. I'm Ayman Taleb. Have a good evening and Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.